Welcome to Make Haste Slowly. I'm Michael.
I'm Alison, and we're the founders of Medici Roasting, as well as your hosts on Make Haste Slowly. Today, we get to interview Rick Wittenbraker. Michael, tell us a little bit more about our guest.
Well, Rick is a neighbor of ours across the street of our Westland shop over at Howler Brothers. He's currently head of business development there. And we had a great conversation about just sort of his journey to working at Howler Brothers. I guess he started in 2014 there. And prior to that, worked at Yeti and almost became a doctor when he was in college. So it was really fun to kind of see his sort of excitement about learning new things and kind of how he got to where he is now.
It's a really great conversation. We hope you guys will listen in. Cheers.
Cheers. Today we're joined with Rick Wittenbraker, and from Howler Brothers. He's actually a neighbor of ours across the street from West Lynn, and kind of dive in to kind of get to know him. And Alison's been able to have more conversations with you than I have, so I kind of feel like I'm really actually getting to know you through this. But one thing we like to always start our podcast off with is, what's kind of your most favorite coffee moment or moment at Medici that's kind of memorable, or something that kind of sticks out to you?
Oh man. Well, first off, thank you for having me. This is really fun and cool to get to do. And as a big fan of Medici, it's sort of, added bonus. I would say, oh man, favorite coffee moment. I don't totally have one precise moment. I would say, about one of my favorite things about Medici, and selfishly, it's right across the street from our office. So it's sort of like our other meeting space. But like we'll have team meetings over there, but also if it's somebody, especially from outside the company, it's a super easy place for me to meet people, and I'm often meeting with people from outside the company. And I think it was yesterday I had two meetings back to back. And so, both there, I just reloaded with a new cup of coffee, but it's really great. And it's a great, one of the things I love about it is it's such a gathering point of the neighborhood here in Clarksville. And so you see a lot of the same faces every morning, and then you see different people kind of throughout the day wind through there. And as they are going about their day, some are working, some are hanging out, some are playing with their dog, whatever it is. But it's very much a neighborhood vibe. So that's one of the things we love about it. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, Rick, why he's our neighbor is because of this. Ew.
Looky there. I love it.
So Howler Brothers is across the street. How long? I don't even know. How long have y'all been there? Like, when did you guys get to Clarksville?
Let's see. We moved in, man, I want to say it's been like 8 years now, I think. Something like that.
Wow.
We previously were up in North Austin, and we were in a space that had warehouse and then an office in the front. And that served us really well for that chapter. And back then we were still picking and packing all of our orders. And so it was great, but we just outgrew it. And we hit this point where we either had to get really good at and invest a lot of resources into getting better at like the warehouse fulfillment side of things. And we just said, look, let's let someone else handle that. And then we can spend our efforts on product development and marketing and the things that we think we're good at. And so that's when we said, okay, if we no longer need this warehouse space, let's go find an office. And just being us and the things we like and are interested in. And our founder, Chase, was an architect prior to starting Howler Brothers. And so for him, the actual physical space is really important. We're not just going to go grab the closest available office. And so we had looked and searched for, I mean, I bet we looked at 40 spots, maybe
Mhm.
more, all over town. And then I was driving home one day and drove past the space, and it was a bike shop before we were
Mm.
in there. Y'all probably remember.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
And but I drove past one evening, and it was about 5 o'clock, and it was empty. The lights were on, but it was empty, and there was a little bitty for rent sign in
Oh,
the window. And so I just whipped in there and knocked on Mr. Bond's door, and he was nice enough to show me the space. And I called Chase from the walking the space, and I was like, man, I think I found it. This is it.
That's awesome.
And it's been great, and we love it. And like we were just talking about a second ago, this neighborhood, this
Mm.
area, it really feels like a small town or a
mhm.
village. And this strip, West Lynn, the street, really has that feel. And you see all day long, there's people walking up and down from Medici, and then the restaurants and everything, and the school that's right here. And so
Hmm.
there's just a ton of sort of community around it. And that's something that we love. And it makes it really fun. And subsequently, we've had several team members actually move into the neighborhood. And
Mm.
so we have
That's so
folks that
cool.
walk to work, which
Yeah.
is kind of cool.
Are you one of them? Do you walk?
No, well, I mean, I guess I could. It'd be kind of a long walk, but I've ridden my bike at times, if my car's in the shop or something. I've
Yeah.
done that a number of times. And but close enough that I can actually get here without going through a stoplight.
Ooh.
Oh, winning.
If I weasel through, yeah. But most days I drive, but occasionally I'll ride my bike or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've always loved that neighborhood. We used to call it the island. We lived off of Waterston for about 7 years, and
Yeah,
just be able to walk to Medici and all the restaurants. And it's like once you're on the island, you don't want to leave the island because it's like there's traffic and everything outside the island.
I know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's a lot of fun. I feel like we have, and walking distance from here, you can walk to Whole Foods, you can access all these other pieces of the city,
Mm.
but you don't have to be smushed into all the traffic or the chaos and everything. So
Yeah.
to your point,
Totally.
it is kind of this little island.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's so, I mean, every business on the street is local. And I just feel like that is just a rare little gem of
Yeah.
this.
How did you get involved with Howlers? Like, it sounds like you kind of came on board a little bit into. I think Howler started in 2010, and then you came
Yep.
on 2014. Was that right?
That's right. I was so at the time that they launched, I remember hearing about it like I don't know, a day or two after they launched, and I was just really was a fan and a customer first, and really
Mm.
loved it. And shortly thereafter, um, a mutual friend connected Chase and me, and the three of us went to lunch, and we just hit it off. And at the time, I was working at Yeti.
Mm.
I had joined Yeti when they were a very small, getting off the ground company, and so then I had been there for a couple of years and had really uh, gotten entrenched in the sort of outdoors industry and arena, and so Chase and I just hit it off and became sort of fast friends and talk shop, and we found ourselves going to get beers like once a month. And it
Mm.
really and he would come with a list of questions, and I would come with a list of
Mhm.
ideas or opportunities, and we really just sort of built our friendship that way. And then as the months went on, I met the other partners in the business, and then Andy and Mason. Neither of them live in Austin, but I met them actually and hung out with them. We were all at a trade show together, and so that was really fun. And then as time went by, they asked me to be an advisor. And then when I decided I wanted to leave Yeti, we I we tried to make it work. Weren't quite ready, but then fast forward a little bit of time, and we made it work. And so now I've been here for 10 and a half years.
What is it? You sound like again, just kind of maybe getting in some of your backstory too. Is what is it that you are sort of advising on, or what kind of how did you kind of get into that role to be able to like? I guess the simple question I'm wanting to ask is really is like what was it that you were bringing to
What
the
do I
puzzle?
do?
Yeah, what do you do?
Well, at Yeti, I ran the marketing for Yeti for a number of years, and and look, it was even then was amazing, but it was nothing like that company is today.
Mm-hmm.
They're huge and publicly traded and crazy numbers involved there, but we and I when I started at Yeti, it was very much a nascent business. It was very sales focused. And so all of their marketing was sort of this, I don't want to say an afterthought, but it was very much in support of their wholesale business. And so there was all these opportunities that we got to go take advantage of because they hadn't yet really tackled those challenges. And so part of it was the function of doing like building a marketing organization and really employing real marketing for this company. And then also it happened to be in this outdoor industry that I was a fan of my whole life and played in my whole life, but never worked in. And so then kind of fast forward to getting involved with Howler Brothers. Stace is an incredibly talented designer and idea person. And so he had all this, I mean, incredible, copious amounts of ideas. But he and Andy, our co-founders, had never really done this before. They'd done a lot of cool, interesting stuff in their life, but they had never launched a business like this. They never sold online or marketed a company like this. And so for me, I had the ability to sort of, at first just started talking with them like, hey, are you doing this? Are you thinking about that? Some of it's just like almost more practical advice things. But then as we got into it and they kept growing, how the brothers kept growing, then it came a little bit more like, okay, well, let's get into the weeds a little more, the nitty gritty on what are you doing for marketing and what are you doing about these different activities. And so it just kind of snowballed from there. But really, it was in a broad, if you had to pick one word, marketing.
Yeah.
So then when I joined here, that's what that's what we set out to do as well. And they had already, been doing these activities, but not with as much effort or gusto. And so let's go do that. Let's sort of professionalize all that a little more and then go tackle more stuff that we had never done before. And so that the company that's always putting out new products and, we really pride ourselves on creativity and originality, then all these have these new stories to then tell. And building, really trying to build an audience and in the best way, like trying to build a cult of people that really love and follow you and want to be a part of it. And so all those things factor into like how we've done stuff. And then fast forward today now, for the past, now it's been a little over 2 years, but I handed off most of the marketing. We brought on this great guy, Paul Graham, because we had hit this point and the business had grown tremendously. And we said, well, okay, here's now we're at this new sort of crossroads. And what do we want to be in the next 10 years? And we're all agreeing on all the stuff we had put up on the whiteboard. But in part of that, I'm saying, look, I'm buying all this, but I think that where we are today and where we want to go the next 5 years, there's somebody out there who is better than me, has fresh ideas, a different experience, and is probably dying to do this for a company like us. And so I think this is the cool, and in that, all of the like tasks on our plate had grown proportionally with the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so what used to just take, your Tuesday afternoon is now a full-time job kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you guys are familiar with that. You guys keep adding locations and growing as a brand and your product offering. And so y'all see that. And so that's where we were. And so for me, it was like, well, hey, I am wholeheartedly believe in what we're doing here. I just also, for me, I was like, well, there's somebody out there who can help this. And as a shareholder and as a partner in this business, like I want what's best for the business. Whether if that's me or somebody else, like I don't really care. So we sort of pulled together what we felt was like, hey, this is what we're looking for, what we need. And I'm not leaving, by the way. I'm just kind of moving over.
Are we about to get?
And so we ended up finding Paul Graham, and he's this great guy, and he brings a ton of really awesome experience. And he, it took him 0.0 hours to join the team, assimilate, and become part of the team. And so it's been a great thing for us as a company, and a great thing for me, because there's a few things that I sort of still carried with me or do. And we work together on a lot of stuff, but really like he's running the marketing now, and I've shifted into a different role that encompasses a variety of things. But the label we sort of put on it is business development, because it involves we do a lot of partnerships and collaborations and involvement with outside parties. And so I tend to oversee a lot of those activities and relationships. And so that's where I spend probably the bulk of my time now.
This is so fascinating. I just really, because that's something I've noticed with Howler Brothers. It's kind of funny whenever I look across the street and see Howler Brothers, but then y'all seem like such a small kind of like company. But then when I look at your branding and like how your reach and stuff like that, it's just sort of like y'all do such a great job of communicating your brand that I'm kind of a little bit jealous of, as far as like, that's one thing Alison and I've always been really not very good about, is how to communicate your brand, as far as like, like you were talking about the cult following type thing. I think we've been able to do it because we've been in so long, but that's something that I do notice about brands when they're able to, like, you have a great product, you have a great mission, but communicating that to your consumer, because it's like they want to be a part of it, but if you're not communicating it, how can they be a part of it? You're not inviting them into it. And I think that's been always a difficult thing, I think, for us to like make that connection, other than maybe like I don't know. I mean, is that something like, even as far as like you going from like a smaller brand to like you're talking about how much bigger it is? Does that message get harder to communicate, or is it just different?
That's a really good question. I think there's a few things, and look, it's always evolving, and even we as a team are always working on it to refine it and make it better and evolve. And also, like you all, for example, there's a lot that's in your head and you're doing sort of automatically and that y'all do, but it may not be, I'm not picking on you guys, but it may not be as spelled out for the rest of the team. And so the more that you can like articulate that and put it on paper and say, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and oh, by the way, this is who we're not, and this is what we don't do, then I think it makes it easier, and it makes it easier to communicate with your team, which is, I believe, the innermost circle, and then with your partners and your customers and all those things. And so it just makes it so much easier. And especially as you grow and there's more people in the mix, because if you don't have that as clearly articulated, the risk is that, my version goes this way and Allison's version goes this way and your version goes that way. And so, they're all like branches in the same tree, but they're not really the same. And so I think that's where there's just always an opportunity to be improving and refining and communicating that. And so, I mean, but look, it's something we're always working on. We're working on it right now. But I think to your comment earlier, Michael, I think people love to be included. They love to feel like they're a part of something.
Mm.
And like we make apparel, but you guys with coffee shops, it's a much different offering. I mean, you obviously have a make coffee, but like what you're providing for them is this place and this resource and a community touch point. And for some people, it's an office. For some people, it's where they meet up with friends, kind of everything in between. But you guys have even if you haven't written it down in words, you have articulated that to some degree in the places.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when I go to a Medici, whether it's the one across the street or a different location, like I know there's going to be certain things there that's different from maybe some other coffee shop or something.
I think the thing that sticks out to me is the refinement aspect, and I think when I look at brands that you can see that sort of refinement over reiterated refinement, it kind of shows, as far as in the final product, and not that it's ever finished. I think kind of like you were saying, but. How did you get here in the first place? As far as like be able to do marketing, was it like all of a sudden you woke up one day, you were a baby, and you were like, I'm going to do this?
No, in fact, I'm probably like the least. I probably have the most circuitous career path and the least the nonlinear way, and frankly, I took one marketing class in college and that was it. And really, I think for me, it was more that I just naturally loved this stuff. And so over time, you'd be in different jobs and here's what like I'm assigned to do, but then you kind of lean into the stuff that you love or that you're interested in. And so I kept leaning into that even without realizing it. You get excited about the certain aspects of a project or the certain components of a deal or whatever it was. And so I frankly had never had that marketing as like an assignment per se or a job title or anything like that up until, I was always doing parts of it, but not really as even like, this is my assignment. Until, frankly, I didn't even know Yeti yet. And I put it on an event with some friends. I just left a job, didn't know what I was going to do next, and was trying to figure it out, but taking a little time. And then some friends said, hey, let's put on this event. It'll be a fun project. And it was called the Fly Fishing Film Tour. It still exists today, but wow. It was just the Austin show of this film event. Okay. And so we didn't know what we were doing. And back then it was way harder to try and sell tickets online and all that stuff. And so we just sort of cobbled it together amongst 5 friends. And then I asked Yeti to be a sponsor of this event. And back at the time they had 8 employees.
Yeah.
And they all shared one Gmail account, if you can believe that. And so I just asked them to be a sponsor and they said yes. And I took them out to lunch to thank them. And it was at that lunch I started asking all these questions, and they really didn't have answers for them because they were so focused over here on the product itself and on like sales, wholesale. And I was asking all these questions over here, and it just became, I just said, okay, hold on, maybe I'm missing something. So I just went home that night and I stayed up until like 3 a.m, just Googling and trying to research as much as I could about them. And I just had all these things on, and some of them were questions and some of them were ideas and I went back to Roy, the founder, about a week later and said, hey, I think we ought to meet again. I've got all these things that I want to share with you. And I don't really have an ask. I just think you need to hear all this. And so I went back out and met with him, and we're going through this list, and he cut me off after about number 5. I mean, I had like 4 pages on a legal pad, and he cut me off and was like, hey man, this is great. I'm glad you're excited, but I don't know what this is, and I don't know what to do with it. And we're focused on this other stuff. And I was like, well, look, I think it's important, and I think it could make a real material impact to what you're doing.
Hmm.
You should just deputize me and let me do it. And he said, okay. And so
Nice.
I didn't know, I didn't like set out to go do this or to like be a, a consultant or whatever you want to call it. But all of a sudden I just talked my way into it. And now I'm like, oh, I don't even know what I'm doing. I got to go figure this out. And so that was kind of how I started, really. And then, went and eventually rolled in-house full time at Yeti, and was there for over 4 years. And then, like we said, that's how I met and transitioned over here to Howler Brothers.
Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow. So it sounds like your just natural curiosity and creativity, just following those passions and then bringing it to people. Is that kind of
maybe? I mean, I do think I am very curious about a lot of things, and I have like a super wide array of interests. But yeah, maybe so. I mean, I think it's like, sometimes y'all are very familiar with this. There's just, you see things that need to be done, and it doesn't really matter if it needs to be, if it's on your job description or under your department or your title. You're like, hey, let's go do this. And I want to go knock this out. And I think that was a little more of how it got started. And then, but yeah, I love doing that though.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you have a business degree or a marketing? I mean, is that like a intent? You said you went to college, you went to UT?
I did. I went to UT.
Okay. So
What did you study?
Oh man, that was a terrible question. So I was actually pre-med until
okay.
That's
Christmas of my senior year.
Wow.
And I realized it prior, but that was the first time I could like really make a switch. And I went to my parents and I'm like, I'm miserable. I don't want to go to med school. I don't want to be a doctor. I just I picked that early on and then never questioned it again. But in retrospect, like my heart was not in it. My best friend is a doctor here in town, and we were at school at the same time, and he freaking loved it. He loved all the classes. He loved just being all in it. And I was like, I can't stand it.
Why did you choose it?
And so I don't know, coming out of high school, you think you have an idea what you're interested in. And
Yeah.
I never like went back to question it.
Yeah.
Or like take temperature really. And so, but I was always interested in taking classes in these other things that I really was interested in, which should have been a big red flag or indicator. But so anywho, I went to my parents and I basically made a proposal to them. And I said, look, here's what I think. I've done some research. Here's what I think is like the best way for me to get out. It may take an extra semester, but I want to grab these business classes just to sort of give myself a little footing. So when I get out of school, that I'm not just flying blind. And so that's what I did. It took me, had a little victory lap in there, but and then I got really lucky. And so there's a kind of a through line or common thread is that I already and had the privilege of living, doing a study abroad program in Mexico when I was in junior high. And so that really like kicked off this love of Spanish and languages and international stuff for me. And so then I kept studying, and then so I was also getting a Spanish degree on the side.
Okay.
And so then I basically said, okay, well now my major my only degree will be Spanish, but instead of just getting out as soon as possible, I want to go get these classes and sort of, adjust a little bit. And then, and I continued studying Spanish, and I did a semester in Spain when I was in college. And so I got out and I really didn't have a good idea what I wanted to do, but I said, I don't really know what I want to do, but I want to go to Argentina. I was
Huh.
like, I just picked a place, and I said, I not no disrespect to anybody else, but I don't just want to go down there and like teach English or volunteer or something. I wanted to go like have a job. But back then, it was really hard to find jobs
Mm.
online.
Hmm.
And my parents didn't know anybody in Argentina or anything. And, you know, it was really hard to connect with people.
Hmm.
And so I got extremely lucky. And uh, long story short, a guy that I graduated high school with, his dad ran a private equity group out of Dallas, and they had an investment down there. I had no idea this happened. And I bumped into his wife one day, and she said, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you looking for?" And I told her, and I sort of said it like, "Oh, I'm trying to go to Argentina, but there's no possible way you could help me with that." And she goes, "Oh, actually, Edward is invested in the company down there. You should talk to him."
Uh-huh.
So literally on the next week, I would go in and meet him, and they kind of offered me a job on the spot. And
Hmm.
so it was really neat and way above my pay grade and like what I deserved or knew at the time. But because of the language was what unlocked it for me,
Hmm.
and my willingness to go live down there. I mean, that's all I wanted. But to them, it sounded like this, insurmountable task of living down there. And so I got this really fortunate and got to go live down there and sort of be their, I don't know, man on the street and keep tabs on that existing investment, and then also be the first filter for other opportunities,
Hmm.
which I really didn't. I was learning, on the fly, but
Hmm.
it was an incredible experience, and I got to look at a lot of different stuff and see a lot of different things and meet a lot of great people, and just sort of fell in love with it. And so
Wow.
I did that and was there for uh, about a year. There was some time overlap where I got transitioned to another another business we invested in El Salvador.
Hmm.
And so there was a time when I was going back and forth, and then I spent a little over 3 years in El Salvador.
Oh, that's a beautiful place.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a heck of a coffee place too.
Really great coffee. Yeah.
Um,
I love this. Like I think just kind of seeing like a theme for you is just that idea of just that curiosity, and then also just you keep kind of scratching at it, and I think that's kind of cool, dude. It's fun to see. It's like almost like that's sort of the entrepreneurial sort of spirit, as far as like I don't know how to do this. I'm not qualified for this, but I'm gonna go and figure it out. It's like I think that seems like has opened up a lot of opportunities for you in the
where does that
for your
confidence
Yeah.
come from? I feel like I have noticed this in a lot of the entrepreneurs that we've interviewed. Where does that confidence come from of like, I see this thing, I'm just going to go do it?
I don't know how to answer that. Allison, I mean, honestly, like, I don't know. I think I've just always um, been interested and curious in things and said, well, instead of just going, huh, that's cool, like trying to dig in and figure out more or learn more.
Mm.
And you might get in there and go, yeah, that's not for me, or I don't want to do that. I'm just going to kind of zoom back out. But uh, I don't know. I think, where what if you lean into those things that attract you or that
Mhm.
or interest you, I think you end up finding it's like they say, if you find something, what is it, like you find something, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. I mean, it's not that exact same thing, but it's sort of along those lines of like if you find something you're interested in, it becomes less of a job and it's more of just something that you or want to do. Now, not every day is fun or interesting or there's days that you want to throw up, but there. I think for me, it's just always been things like that, and it might just be a hobby or something I'm interested in, or movies or whatever. But then when you can sort of overlap personal interest with work, and it doesn't have to be your hobby. It could just be I like doing this function, or I like helping people, or, whatever that is. And so it could just be wherever those things that you are interested in line up with what you're doing, then it just makes it way easier, way less friction.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like this is a theme as far as like something like just been thinking about my kids and like what kind of future is it, college or what it is. And I think kind of the way when I'm listening to you, I see it also that same idea is like if you're passionate about something or you're thinking about something, go sweep the floors at that place, and learn from them, and then kind of keep scratching away, and you're going to find something that you really enjoy. But like college now, like the ROI on a college degree is like almost stupid,
Yeah. Well, and I think that the whole college system, look, I have a daughter who's a freshman at UT right now, and
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm excited for her and everything she's getting to do. But at the same time, like that is sort of this program, and it teaches you these things, and it sort of readies you for that. And that's all great, but there are also all these other things and opportunities out there. And so I'm always I'm trying to push my kids to say, hey, if you're interested in something, kind of what you were just saying, if you're interested, lean in and research more, or go dig and figure out why do you like that? What's cool about it? What interests you? And go get a job there, or go just make that the subject of your class project or whatever it is. There's actually an event tonight I'm going to, and my daughter's in the communication school at UT, and there's an event called there's an organization called SKU, and it's a sort of incubator for CPG brands, and it's really neat. And I've been involved in the past, and I'm not involved this semester, but tonight is the big showcase day where all the companies sort of graduate from the program and present, and as they're sort of leaving the nest and going out to the world or back into the world. And it's just a really great event. And it's really cool to see these companies progress, and then how they present themselves and communicate to everybody what they've done and where they're going. And so I just said, hey, kiddo, why don't you come with me? You're going to be the only college kid there, but like, come with me. It's really neat. And this is the more recent thing, but I'm really trying to like get my kids more involved. And they may not love what I love, but I think just being exposed to people doing interesting things will help like open them up to kind of being more receptive, or have their eyes open a little more to the different opportunities out there.
That's cool. How many kids do you have?
3.
3. All right. What's the age?
Yeah. 19, 17, and 15.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. How many do you guys have?
We have 5.
I have, oh my gosh.
Yeah, our oldest is in her second year of college, and then we have a senior and a sophomore and an 8th grader and a 6th grader.
Amazing.
Wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
Parenting is wild. It feels challenging. This was something I was kind of curious about. Parenting, so like, you noticed your like social media account, your personal account is public, and like ours are too. And so I'm now that they're teenagers and it feels like their lives have more like their own life quality. It's interesting to figure out how to navigate that, I guess. Like exposing them publicly, and what's their choice in that. Has that been an issue for your family, or have y'all had to deal with that at all?
I'd say it hasn't been an issue, thankfully. I think we have, I tend to share less about, I don't share a whole lot anyways. I'm more just sort of supporting, or,
Right.
The stuff we're doing at Howler or friends or whatever. But I tend to shy away from really putting a lot of pictures and stuff from them out there. Not that I'm totally opposed to it, but I think more just letting them kind of do their own thing and following suit on whatever is right for them. And they're all different. we obviously have some rules about what they can and can't do as parents, but no, I'm more, I don't know. And I think there's can often be a lot of too much value put on social, and too much time, but too much value really. It can be helpful in some ways and can be fun and cool in a lot of ways, staying in touch with old friends and things. But, I don't know. Parenting is a challenge for sure. I think of, and this is maybe in the more recent, years, I really want to try and encourage my kids for whatever they're interested in.
Yeah.
And they're still figuring that out, and it changes, monthly. But I think one of the things that I think about I've met a couple of your kids as you've come into the shops at times, but I think what's so neat is like your kids get to see you in action. And they've probably been to all the locations and have probably helped y'all do different things, whether that's, rearrange or clean up or remodel or install new stuff. And I think that's a real gift to give your kids, is to let them witness it, be a part of it, and then maybe help with it. And I think even if they might be like, coffee or whatever, like whatever their attitude about it is, you're like, hey, come on, you got to come with me. We're going to the Clarksville shop. We got to do this or that. And they're like, but in reality, and I think later on, they will recognize like, man, this was a really cool thing. And I'm so grateful that my parents brought me along on this journey and that they taught me all this stuff, even though at the time I didn't like it. And I think it will serve them well. And they'll end up giving them a lot of character and probably a lot of work ethic and things because they've watched you all build this business together. And that's a really neat thing, when you said 5, I almost said, oh, so is one of them like the roaster and one of them is like really good at cappuccinos and one of them is like, but I think, but I think it's someday they will really, I think, appreciate and value what you guys have shared with them on that front.
Hope so. We really are hoping that one of them will become a restaurateur and one of them will become a sommelier. That's not going to happen. And most of them don't even drink coffee. So they can't work for us. You have to drink coffee in order to work for us. But no, it's so interesting. They're so different. And I thank you for your kind words about that. I just feel really curious, like what parts of, how we've chosen the choices that we've made for our family, and how that has affected them. Like what parts are going to be a resource and what I just really have no idea. But
and what parts are going to need therapy for,
Well, I mean, look, they may grow up and like hate coffee, but that doesn't mean that that's their taste on coffee. But like they very well may, and I would be willing to bet that they will end up really appreciating what you have shared with them in the path and getting to like witness you all do all this, whether, on all facets and growing your business. And I think that's a really, really cool thing. My wife, she's an interior designer. And so especially all my kids have helped her in one way or another, but especially my daughters will, she'll reach a point and say, okay, I need a little help. Will y'all come help me with this? And it might be organizing samples or rearranging the office or whatever it is, running errands. But even if our kids have zero interest in interior design for the rest of their life, I think just getting them exposed to that stuff and seeing their parents, getting to see their parents work, and it makes them, I think, at the very least, because you're not just like leaving the house with your briefcase, going to an office and then returning and they never really see it. I think when they get to see it, they get to process it on their own time, and over time they build this like real appreciation of what you were doing, what it means when you're going to be home late or you have to leave early or one of those things, or travel for work. And then also that like, oh, it instills in them, I think, both that like, yeah, hard work is a good thing, and that I can go do what I want. My parents started this chain of coffee shops, you know, and everything associated with that. Or my mom was an interior designer and she didn't know, you know, she just basically put a flag in the sand and started doing it. And so I think it gives them some, not that they have confidence, but it sort of unlocks that for them and say, yeah, well, this is the possibility. And I can go do that too. Even if mine is not coffee shops, it could be something different.
Right.
Totally. Well, I think, you know, kind of as we wrap up too, we're going to kind of ask you for a recommendation as far as like, you know, something that you would want to pass on to somebody, whether, you know, philosophical or even just a restaurant recommendation. It can be whatever kind of recommendation you want.
Well, one thing that I think has really, really benefited me and my wife, and I think that it's something that we hold pretty dear, is I think travel. And yes, it's great to go sit on a beach or a resort or something, but really travel where you get to see and experience other people and other places is something that's really, really good for humans. And I think it gives you a ton of perspective. It also helps you understand, like, I think gratitude of what you have. And then you see other ways of doing things. So not everything has to be our way. And both my wife and I lived abroad, and I think that is this incredible experience that even if you don't go do that, and maybe you never go back to that place, it still is this thing that gave you this better perspective. I think you're probably a better human because of it. And so I just am, it's real easy to sort of stay in your little world, but I think it's such an important part. And I think something like coffee is this really cool means, you know, by which you can utilize travel. You can go visit all these growers in different places and get to see them and get to know them and get to understand how, not only how the coffee beans are grown and processed and things, but then who are these people behind this?
Right.
And what are they doing? And so I just think it's such a fascinating thing. And even if you move on and move to a totally different job or industry, that it still gives you this perspective that I think benefits you work and beyond for the rest of your days.
I did. The question I was going to ask you is because what do you do like in your spare time? Like what's your down? Do you have like hobbies or something that you like do outside of family and Howler and all that kind of stuff?
Well, you know, like I already said, we have 3 kids. So
Yeah,
that.
that's your hobby.
But you know, but honestly, outside of that, if that's all, if family is sort of taken care of, and I mean, one of my favorite things to do is to fish, and specifically on the saltwater. And so I've tried anytime I can pull it off. I love getting to do that.
Yeah.
And that could be Texas coast, which is just 3 hours away, or something farther. Love taking my kids to do that. They all have sort of in their own ways really grown to love it. But yeah, that's what. And then another thing I love is, honestly, it's just learning about other companies, other brands, other businesses, other things. And I think it just gives you a perspective. For me, at least, like I love, you know, becoming friends with people that run different types of businesses like you guys. And then, oh, well, that's not really applicable to what I do, but man, it's really interesting to know. And maybe there's a way that we could adapt that to what we're doing. So I think it's like always learning and trying to get better.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to kind of ask that is especially when you have family and running a business, and it's like, how do you kind of like take time for yourself and sort of rejuvenate? Because I think that's something that's sometimes hard to do when there's, especially with family, and you're fully invested and want to do those things, but you also need to kind of like regroup and have some time to yourself. So fishing does
Yeah.
sound really nice though.
Yeah. It's good. You know, and a lot of the time when you're fishing, or the places I like to go is you may not have cell service. So you kind of get to like, okay, chuck this in the bottom of the boat and not worry about it for a while. And,
Yeah.
and I think it is good to reset, and that could be different for different people. You know, sometimes just getting outside, sometimes it's reading or whatever, but,
Yeah.
travel, we love to travel when we can.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Well, Rick, thanks for coming on. Alison, did you have anything else before we wrap up?
Well, I just feel really grateful to get to talk to you and know you more. And I feel like this is exactly why we want to do this podcast, right? I feel like you and I have had like 3-minute conversations standing in line waiting for coffee for like years now.
Yeah.
And, but we've never had the opportunity to really, now, like, you lived in Argentina, you lived in El Salvador, you're fluent in Spanish. Like, this is amazing. And just to hear the depth and the passion that you have for what you do and how you're living your life. And it's just gold. I feel like this city is full of people that are just treasures. If we make the time to get to know one another and share. And so this is why we're doing this. And I'm really grateful that you're here and have been willing to just give us a insight into you and how you got to where you are. So thank you very much. And I'm like, can we do it again? Because I've been writing down questions as we're going through this conversation. I'm like, I didn't get to ask about this. So maybe we can have a next episode.
A follow-up
sometime.
Sure thing. I would love it. Well, thank you all. And I always love getting to meet and know better new people. And I totally agree with you. I think that Austin is this incredible, vibrant community beyond just a place. And then there's so many cool people here doing really cool things. And it's not all in one industry or one type of role. And so for me, it's always completely interesting and fascinating to get to meet other people doing cool stuff. And I always, circling back to the kids, I'm always like, hey, there's a million ways to go earn a living. And it's not just a job. Like, you can go do a lot of different things. And so you should try and go get exposed to as much of this as you can. And you're going to have some jobs you hate. But if you can meet awesome people along the way and hopefully arrive at, where you ought to be, both with people and with jobs, then you're making good progress.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Rick, thanks for coming on the podcast, and we'll have to catch up later again. And thank you all for joining Make Case Slowly.
Thank you for being a regular.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Cheers.